Hi there, I'm Ahsan Ali Shaw, and you're watching me on YouTube and Facebook Live. Today, we are going to talk about thermal pollution, heat pollution. Thermal pollution or heat pollution is a process of degrading or lowering the quality of water, and it is the series of real environmental issues that those issues you're not going to heard about in the mainstream media or the education system. Anyways, thermal pollution is a process of, as I said, is a process of lowering the quality of water. And thermal pollution or heat pollution is caused by, hey Adam, is caused by the industries and the nuclear power plants. 20% by the industries and 80% by the nuclear reactors and nuclear power plants. And the whole education system and mainstream media is focusing on it tells you that they tell you that 20% okay industry and petroleum products are the main cause, are impacting, jeopardizing the environment, but in reality it is the thermal energy, thermal pollution, or the nuclear power plants are the main parties, but they are not focusing on them. Hey, Paul. Uh, anyways, how does it work? Thermal pollution. Nuclear power plants and nuclear reactors they use water as a cooling agent to lower the temperature of the reactor and stopping it from melting it down. And water helps them to lower the temperature of the reactor, and after using it they drain it out into the sea, and its temperature is so high that it immediately reduces the oxygen level in the sea, which impacts the ecosystem permanently, and immediately for the time being it kills the fish. Fish have the capability to adjust according to the changes in the temperature, but the sudden change in temperature they can't bear it. And when the drop of the oxygen level in the sea, it is still impacting the environment. And thermal pollution or heat pollution is our topic for discussion today. And my guest is Edward Konowicz, and he has joined us from Virginia, United States. Hey, Ed.
Yeah, hi. Ali Hassan. How are you?
I'm doing good. I apologize to my audience and to you again for the disconnectivity last week. There was some tech issue. My internet, my internet is very in a very feeble state. Anyways, thermal pollution. What a topic you gave me, and I learned a lot. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, it's hidden. First of all, let me apologize. I'm not an
Hmm.
expert. This is not my
Yeah.
field of study.
Hmm.
I'm not even an amateur,
Hmm.
but I have to address the issue
Hmm.
because the professionals are not addressing the issue.
Hmm.
The media is so controlled by propaganda as if
Hmm.
CO2, carbon dioxide, is the thermal pollution issue when
Hmm.
it isn't.
Hmm.
Number one greenhouse gas is water, and
Hmm.
anyone can observe during a cloudy day.
Hmm.
Water vapor as a greenhouse gas cools because
Hmm.
it doesn't know direction. It's going
Hmm.
to dissipate or scatter heat and radiation coming from a heat source. So
Hmm.
during the day, the clouds scatter heat coming from the sun, so a cloudy day is cooler. At night, the heat source is the earth, so the clouds or water vapor, the greenhouse gas, scatters back heat from the earth.
Hmm.
So it isn't simple. What happens during the day is different than what happens during the night. And global warming, which is going on, we are still on the rebound from the ice age. And the statistics were given are not true. So not even an amateur, I'm not even an amateur, but having a science background, I feel an obligation to explain to people what they're being told by government and experts on TV is not true. You're being lied to. And I explain
Yeah,
it very simply.
yeah, it is
Experts, and
interesting. Okay,
let me
and
explain one of the big lies.
yes.
Experts have agreed, there has been a consensus
Mhm.
that if the ice caps melt on Earth, the ocean would rise about 200 to 250 feet. The average estimate is around 225 feet. But 25% of the ice caps have melted. What's 25% of 100 feet is 25 feet. So the oceans didn't rise 25 or 50 feet. They rose about 3 inches in the last 20 years. So what we're being told about global warming is a bunch of lies. Our leaders and scientific experts are liars. And if they don't lie and they tell you the truth, they're fired from their jobs, which is global warming is going to melt the ice caps.
But
But
it
the
is
melted
caused
ice
by the
caps would be
uh,
225-foot rise in the ocean. And we've only had a few inches. And 25% of the ice caps have melted about. Well, let's say it's 10%. What's 10% of 100 is 10 feet. 10% of 200 feet
mhm.
is 20 feet. The oceans haven't risen 20 feet. So when we turn on the TV, we get a bunch of liars. And that makes me an amateur, not even an amateur. I have to go on and explain the lies because the
Global warming.
scientists won't tell the truth. Because if
Yeah,
they tell the
so
truth, they're fired.
the mainstream and the mainstream scientists, education system, and they are focusing on the 20%. The 20% of the heat pollution is caused by the industries and the petroleum industry and the petroleum products, and 80% is caused by the nuclear reactors. And they are only focusing. They are telling us that don't use the petroleum products. They are jeopardizing the environment. But in reality, uh, it is the nuclear power plants and nuclear reactors. They are impacting uh, the global warming. They are causing it, but
Yeah,
we
the
are not
global
talking about
warming
it.
propaganda is to
Mhm.
promote nuclear reactors.
Yes, indeed.
Nuclear reactors, this is a statistic.
Mhm.
Nuclear reactors give off a million, not 10, not 100, not 1,000, a million times more heat than fossil fuel generators. So you're going to have nuclear reactors as a solution when they give off a million times more heat? How crazy is that? So people are told the opposite. The people in power are the ones who are destroying the biosphere, and they are continuing to poison it with thermal pollution, poison it with toxic chemicals, radioactive waste, and they want to say they're heroes. The devil comes as a savior. The devil or the evil pretends it's good. And I'm not even an amateur, and I have to get on and introduce to the public that the major experts and scientists are lying to them, obviously lying. And I can point to the obvious lies. Nuclear reactors are about a million times hotter than fossil fuel generators. There's tremendous amount of heat. That's why you need those huge cooling towers. You don't need a cooling tower of these huge widths and dimensions on a fossil fuel power plant. You need the cooling tower to dissipate the thermal pollution. And what's global warming is things got too hot, it's thermal pollution. And the solution those in power want to give us is more nuclear reactors. They're even They're so crazy. I mean, this is crazy. They want a nuclear reactor car. Ford tried a nuclear reactor car called a Nucleon in 1958. They couldn't.
And I was reading about it, and it didn't make any sense to me. What were they thinking about of building a nuclear car, a nucleon, or whatever the name is was, and how would you cool down the temperature of the plant
Right.
or
And if you get
uh,
in an accident and the
mhm,
cooling fails, how do you stop the reactor from going critical? I mean, it's ridiculous. They're presenting
mhm,
ridiculous proposals like Bill Gates.
mhm,
I think
mhm,
it's Montana is going to try to build a nuclear power plant, but
mhm,
but a significant portion has to be funded by the government because the heat is so hard. The heat is so hot. It's so hard to dissipate the heat. Nuclear reactors require superior metals, superior design, superior waste disposal. They're inefficient. States like Illinois and New York City are closing down, New York State are closing down their nuclear reactors because they're too expensive. So nuclear energy is not the solution, it's the bigger problem.
mhm.
And our leaders, like supposedly Bill Gates, they're promoting more nuclear reactors when we have a problem with global warming, when the nuclear reaction is about a million times hotter than a fossil fuel reaction. I
And
mean, it's crazy.
it's not just limited to the world's top leaders. Even the new countries, they are also jumping into the train of nuclear race. For instance, the Iran has been working on the nuclear energy, and she's claiming that they are going to use it for the for the secure and safe purposes, for the energy purposes. What is that?
Yeah, the nuclear reactors were originally built to produce nuclear fuel for nuclear weapons. And that finally came out in the open, though that's
Mhm.
squashed and the public doesn't hear it. Nuclear reactors were built to produce
Nuclear,
weapon grade
yes.
radioactive material. So
This is
spent
the main
nuclear
truth.
fuel is not
Mhm.
safer. This
Yes,
idea,
indeed.
oh, it's spent nuclear fuel, it's safe, it's not true. You
And,
build a nuclear reactor or pile to make a nuclear weapon. So the product is not safer.
yes, indeed, and this is the sole purpose of it. The purpose of nuclear power plants and nuclear reactors is to build weapons, nuclear weapons. That's it. There's no other agenda. You cannot make electricity from it, or you cannot because it's going to be too costly. When you maintenance cost of the reactor is going to be much higher than the production of electricity from the other sources.
Yeah, and it's going to be more expensive, and
Yes.
it never stops because nuclear wastes have to be contained, repackaged, sometimes for hundreds of thousands of years.
Yes, indeed.
And I'm looking up. I forgot the name of the nuclear power plant,
Mhm.
and
There are
in
many
Britain.
of uh,
Yeah. So the
uh,
big issue, I don't even think is nuclear.
mhm,
So nuclear is contaminating with thermal pollution. It's
mhm,
inefficient, highly costly. No business would build a nuclear power plant on their own without government subsidies and laws passed to secure the investment. It's simply not efficient. If it was efficient, they wouldn't need government
mhm.
investment.
Even
So
if
the
it is, even if the government knows that it is inefficient, why the government is allowing it? Why the people are allowing it? for the nuclear energy to be produced or to be experimented.
Well, that's a
So,
difficult question. I don't like to go into speculation.
mhm.
Um, but the
I
government
think
is not
people.
acting in the benefit
Mhm.
of the people.
Yes, indeed. And I think people are not aware of it. They're focused, they are being taught that the industrial waste and the petroleum products are the main cause are the main causes of the pollution. But in reality, it is the nuclear energy.
Yeah, but
We are being
I don't think nuclear energy is right now causing global
Mhm,
warming. What
mhm,
I think are the factors in global warming is the increase of pavement,
mhm,
and all you have to do is
mhm.
be barefooted, walk on the summer on pavement, and walk on grass, which is the air. Our atmosphere is not really heated by the sun. The sun heats the ground. The ground acts as what's called the black body radiator, which is it takes the higher frequency light and radiates it as heat or infrared. And then the air is heated from the ground. That's why a mountaintop that doesn't have much surface area at that level is cold because it doesn't have much radiated ground. The ground isn't hot, the air is thinner, so it's cooler. The air is thicker at the sea level. There's more land flat at sea level, so you get greater heating of the air. So pavement and asphalt is a tremendous increase in the heating of the atmosphere. And we never hear on TV with global warming, we have to reduce pavement, parking lots, and streets because this is a major contributor to global warming. Now, the second problem is you start building parking lots, you reduce trees, green land that reduce temperature through evaporation. And they do this because they're like a sponge. They soak up water, whether it's the soil, the grass, the trees, and then when they get too hot, they evaporate to cool, just like we do. We soak up or drink up water, and when we get too hot, we sweat. And that rises, and that can form eventually clouds, which then block the sun. You remove your trees, you remove your wetlands, you remove your grass, you're removing your evaporation. And this is the major cause. I'm going to say it. I'm going to go out on a limb, say this is 99% of the major cause of most flooding is runoff. We no longer have rain being absorbed by grass and trees, but we have it running off parking lots, off driveways, off roads, and this tremendous amount of water within minutes can run off all of this and go into the drainage system, which then empties into some rivers. And those rivers can now have flash floods because there was too much pavement, too much building. And engineers need to design different drainage system, porous material to be used for parking lots and driveways, islands of trees. They need to plan so you don't get this massive runoff and flash floods like Germany is getting.
Yeah, but they are busy chopping off majority of the trees. They don't have to. They don't have time, or they don't have. It's not in the planning
Right.
to.
If the leaders were sincere about global warming, they would be planting more and more trees and parks, restricting pavement, and they
But
would
the
be encouraging with tax credits porous concrete and pavement where the water can soak into the ground and reduce the runoff. But they're just lying to people. All they want to do, this is the Paris Accords. The whole Paris Accords is certain countries are going to tax fossil fuels so poor people have a harder time paying for electricity, for heat, for air conditioning, for goods. They want to tax people more and think by less consumption, they're going to reduce the problem of global warming. They don't want to reduce the pavement. They don't want to reduce the nuclear waste of energy in nuclear power plants. They don't want to plant trees. They don't want to secure the wetlands and forests. They want tax money. And these
Yes, indeed.
lying criminals who run our world, all they want is more money, it's greed, more
Mhm.
taxes. So
And what about
the solution to climate change is to tax people.
tax
That's their
people about what?
solution.
Tax people? Yeah, that's their solution. What about the construction industry? Construction industry is one of the world's major businesses, and the pavement and infrastructure is increasing at a very massive scale across the globe. And I think people are not really concerned about the impact of the pavements, that
No, they're
how
not
it is.
concerned, or even
They
they're
are
not
they are
concerned
making.
about urban design,
Yes,
suburban design. We have to
they are.
design our suburbs with enough greenery to avoid flash floods, to avoid this quick runoff. There's no concern. The only concern of these world leaders who are criminals, I don't have any problem saying the world leaders are criminals. They're lying to people.
Their
And
main
these
concern.
criminals who are totally untrustworthy, who've gained control of the human race, want
They are
to
trying.
tax people more, which is more people are going to starve, more people are going to die in houses that don't have heat or air conditioning. They want to up the cost of electricity rather than solve the problem. In fact, they want to increase the problem with more construction, and there's no regulation being enforced. That's with this collapse of the building in near Miami. The concrete is not being inspected. I happen to know someone in the construction industry. When the state inspector or city inspector comes, they give them a sample of the concrete to be measured. Well, that's not what they're using. They prepare special samples to pass the tests, and then they pour cheap concrete into the building, the road, the bridge, the overpass. So we got Roman concrete has lasted, some of it 2,000 years. There are still bays and docks based on concrete in the water that the Romans put down over 2,000 years ago. Our concrete, the construction people are lying, the state inspectors are being paid off, so rotten concrete is being pushed down on our construction. So
And they
we
are
got
turning
thousands of problems why the government's corrupt. The
the
problem isn't
construction
the people
yes.
with personal messages or Facebook or YouTube. The problem isn't the people giving misinformation. The misinformation and the crime is coming from government. And people
Yes,
have to
indeed.
recognize government's not their friend. Government has been creating the wars, the pollution, the destruction of the environment. Government is not their friend. It's the
Government is
criminals that run the human race.
Government is
Well,
a friends with the corporations. With
yeah.
the government is loyal to the interest of those corporations. They are paying them, or those politicians. They are funding those politicians. And the government loyalty of the government is with the corporations. They are not. It's not with the people, with the interest of the people. What is good for the people, and they are turning the construction industry is turning the world into a concrete jungle. The world is becoming a concrete jungle.
Yeah, my emphasis is stay to facts, and facts have probabilities. We don't have absolute truth. When you hear something like safe and effective, like
Mhm.
nuclear power plants are safe and
Same.
efficient, that's not a fact. You have to look at different opinions, different probabilities. I mean, we now have seen at least three nuclear power plants go to total disaster. 3 Mile Island, Fukushima, and Chernobyl. And we were told none of them would. I was told as the kid, that Japanese engineering has become so good, a nuclear power plant will always be safe in Japan. And here we see the engineering of Fukushima was so ignorant to have put the generators where a tidal wave could disable it, the generators needed to pump coolant. Remember, Fukushima failed because it was too hot. They couldn't cool it because the tsunami disabled the generators that would drive the coolant to keep the nuclear reactor from melting down because it's so hot. The actual metal turns into like a lava, a self-generating pile of radioactive material because it's so hot. So how's this going to be a solution to global warming? And yet the leaders like Bill Gates are promoting nuclear power as a solution when it's the problem.
Yes.
The world has been turned
And
upside down. And all you got to look at,
mhm.
thermal
I
pollution.
think
That's why you don't hear
mm,
thermal pollution. You hear
we
global
don't hear
warming.
about it. Yeah.
You hear global warming all the time, but you
Mhm.
never hear about thermal pollution because if you start talking about thermal pollution, you're going to be
They're
talking
gonna.
about pavement. You're going to be
Mhm,
talking about nuclear reactors. You're going to
mhm,
be talking about the lack of wetlands and forests. So they don't talk about thermal pollution.
mhm,
It's all global warming and
mhm,
acting like it's all fossil fuels and greenhouse gases when the number one greenhouse gas, water vapor,
mhm,
cools
mhm.
the earth during the day
Yeah.
because it's blocking the radiative heat from the sun. Everyone knows that in the summer. A cloudy day is cooler, cloudy being greenhouse gases. And yet the
But we
propaganda is so successful. The mind
but we
control is so effective. People are seeing white as black and black as white, up as down and down as up.
down is up. We are led to bark at the wrong tree. We are human beings, and majority of the people who are following the mainstream education system. Even before you suggested assign me this topic, I was also looking at. I also very concerned about the petroleum products. My focus was on there, but the pavement construction industry and the nuclear reactors are the main causes of it. And 80% of the heat is caused by the nuclear power plants instead of the petroleum products and the other industries. But it starts with the government. The government is that the loyalty of the government is with the corporations, and those corporations they are not concerned with their main concern is money and making wealth. So,
And
Ed, what
profit,
is your
right?
final? Yes, what is your final thought?
Well, my final thought is the people need to consider rethinking what they're taught as science. We have to look at global warming in terms of thermal pollution. And then we have to look at what's causing thermal pollution and not accept the answers the media is giving to us. And the basic idea is you can prove this with wars. Our leaders are criminals. So someone like Julian Assange, who points out the war crimes committed by the United States and Britain, he's put in jail, which is the good people who are trying to stop the crime are supposed to be seen as criminals. And the criminals like Tony Blair, who started these wars, and George Bush, and the rest of the people who actually create the wars and the millions of people in refugee status, they're supposed to be seen as heroic. So the criminals in power are supposed to be seen as good, and the people who stand up to them and explain why they're not good, they're actually committing crimes against humanity and the earth, are supposed to be seen as criminals. We live in an upside down world.
Yes, indeed, we live in an upside down where the black is white and the white is black, and up is down and down is up. And nuclear power plants and thermal pollution or heat pollution is one of the major causes of global warming. We cannot, because we don't have the statistic to prove it, but approximately 80% is caused by the thermal pollution, and 20% is by the industry.
Well, we
And
don't know if me interrupt
yeah.
that. We don't know if the current, what I think most of the current global warming
Mhm.
is man. The
Mhm.
man-made portion is pavement, lack
Yes,
of
indeed.
forests, lack of wetlands, lack of proper urban design. But
Mhm.
not. I don't think nuclear energy contributes that much now. But if
Mhm.
Bill Gates and others have their way and build hundreds of nuclear power plants, thousands or millions of nuclear power cars, we're going to have a disaster,
Yes,
which
indeed.
is nuclear power is not a solution. It's part of the problem.
It has never been a solution.
No, it's never been a
And
solution.
yes, indeed. And if you have any questions about nuclear reactors, thermal pollution, or heat pollution, just leave it in the comment box below. I'll answer it to you. Ed would get back to you as soon as he can. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Jesse. And thank you, other people, for joining us for your wonderful comments. And thank you
Okay,
so
I
much.
can't get
Have
to
a,
the comments here. There's
uh,
comments, I can read them, but when this
yeah,
is over, you can
uh,
comment if you have a question for me or a criticism or
mhm.
disagreement or whatever on my
Yes,
Facebook page. You
yeah,
just go
yeah,
search Ed Konowicz and you'll find my Facebook page. You'll find the link for this,
mhm.
and then you can comment under there and I'll try to answer the question. I want to repeat, I'm no expert. I'm not even
Yes,
an amateur. I'm just trying
yeah,
to point out the obvious contradictions.
yes, indeed. We are independent researchers. I am an independent researcher. We are just learning about different things, and I love learning about different things, about the reality, the real issues, and the real cause of it. And thank you so much. Have a good day, good afternoon,
Okay,
or good
bye
evening,
everyone.
wherever you are.